Alright, first thing we're going to do is take the full sheet that is given to you, and we have to route out that interior profile. So I'm going to take a template, put some double stick tape down, and place it onto that countertop. So we'll lock it down with some clamps, and then we're just going to run it with a straight bit and a guide bushing. So we'll ride that guide bushing along that template, and we're going to step cut this. And ideally you'll do this in 3 step cuts. So I ran it one time, here's my second time, we'll spray it out, and then we'll run it a third time. Make sure you spray out all those chips between cuts, and then when you get through, make sure you save that middle piece because we are going to use it again. After you get everything cut out, we'll move our countertop outside of the workbench, and we'll swap out that bit for a pattern bit to get everything clean to the template. I'll go ahead and run that pattern bit right along that interior edge and clean everything up. And then I left that template hanging over on the outside just to make sure that I could get everything perfectly square to that template. I'll use a putty knife to just pry up that double-sided tape. It can be pretty sticky, and we don't want to tear off that 1/4 inch melamine. So once you have all of that, we'll go ahead and we'll cut down our countertop. So we'll set it to 15 inches, the fence, and I'll do one side, flip the countertop, and we will cut the other side to 15 inches. So we need to create our stacked edge, and here we have that middle piece. It's a little short to comfortably run on the table saw, so we are going to take advantage of the track saw with a triple chip blade in it. We'll set that to 4.5 inches and cut that right off. Now you'll have to find a different color of your choice, any middle piece, and cut that to 4.5 inches as well. We can cross cut that, and then you should have your middle piece ready to glue up. So now we have to create the 2-inch pieces. So we're going to cut them large before glue up at 2.5 inches. Both the same color as your top, and then the same color as your middle piece that you desire. We need to clean this up before we glue it with denatured alcohol. So I'll spray that down and wipe everything all off. Make sure it's nice and clean, and then we will spread our glue on one side, and we'll get it all over the surface of it. Once the glue is on there, we'll put our pieces together and just put spring clamps all down the edge of it. I like to put a spring clamp on one end and then the other. This just helps minimizing any slipping between the two pieces. And I'll go ahead and do the opposite side as well. Once I got the long 2-inch piece, we'll do that middle stacked edge piece with the same process. Make sure you don't touch anywhere that you've cleaned. That could create any oils on the surface that would not adhere to the glue. We'll let those two pieces set up, and here we are going to create our beaded edge. So we'll do this on the router table. I've set up some feather boards as well, just to hold down my piece as I push it through. And I'm going to do both sides. So the final piece is going to be 1 inch. So just make sure you have enough to do 2 pieces. And then since we're going to wrap this around, we need to do 1 edge as well. So I'll set my fence now to 1 inch, and I'll go ahead and I will rip that down using a triple chip blade. So I have 1 piece, I'll rip the other piece, and as you can see, by doing that end, it comes together seamlessly. Once everything is cured on that stacked edge, we need to get 1 edge flush and all the glue cleaned out of those 2 pieces. So I'll use a flush trim bit on a router table. Make sure that you have this lead-in block so that you don't just touch the bearing right away. That's gonna cause it to kick back. So we go on to that post first and then lead it into that bearing. Once we have that flush edge, we can trim the other edge flush using the table saw. So I'm just going through here with that longer piece and cutting that down to 2 inches total. And then I'll take that other piece, and we need to get that to 4 inches. Right now it's at 4.5 oversized. And since it's a little short for the table saw, I'll use the track saw, and I'll use that longer piece on the stacked edge to just help support the other side of the track. Now that I have parallel edges, I can go ahead and cross cut that using a miter saw with a triple chip blade in it. I'll do the same thing on the middle piece of the stacked edge, and I'll just mark that for 4 inches. Go ahead and cut that down. As you can see on the plans, that beaded edge should be a 1/2 inch away from the countertop edge. So I'm going to use a combo square, and I'm just going to mark it with a pencil here, and then line up that beaded edge with that pencil mark so that I know that I'm perfectly a 1/2 inch away from the countertop edge. From here, I'm going to make the marks on the ends to trim it down to size. And I'm just going to leave it overhanging a little bit. That just allows me to have room to trim. And now I have all these blocks set up, and these are going to be my indexing blocks as I glue up. So I have everything lined up where I need it according to those pencil lines, and I'm just going to make sure that it's held there while I put these blocks in place with some hot glue. Once all those blocks are glued down, I'm going to go ahead and remove those pieces and clean off the surface with the denatured alcohol to prepare it for glue up. I'll clean all the pieces as well, so I'll spray those down, wipe them up, and get everything ready. Don't forget to clean the end pieces. Again, anywhere that touches solid surface needs to be glued down. So any of those ends that are going to touch one another need to also be glued down. On the opposite side on the top, I'm just going to glue down a few more blocks. This is going to allow my spring clamps to fit while I'm gluing. So I have the glue here, and I'll just go ahead and start spreading that around the top where I need to. I'll start with the middle stacked edge piece here. Place that down, and then I'll do the other 2 ends and then start getting clamps on them. Don't forget your edges as well. Again, anywhere that touches the solid surface needs to be glued for a good seam. I'll go ahead and start in the middle with the spring clamps, and these can be a little tricky as you want to put pressure down. Sometimes they want to move, so you can adjust where you have that pressure to move and shift around those pieces. So we'll just put them in a V pattern here and get good adequate pressure along the entire edge. Now doing the beaded edge, I'll just have this against my blocks, and then I'll get 1 spring clamp on, and I'm just checking for flushness on that one edge where they meet. So I'll go ahead and do the other end and then work my way in the middle. Now I'll do the other edge, and just make sure that you put glue on the end of this piece as well, so those 2 pieces together can have a seamless edge. Now I'll do one end on the clamp, then the other, and then I will just work my way down, having adequate pressure. Here I'll just take a scrap solid surface piece, and I just spray denatured alcohol on it and then run it down where the glue is to just try to scrape any of it up. This is just going to really help clean up, and this way you won't have to sand as much, which is what we're ultimately trying to minimize. Once everything is cured, we'll go ahead and remove all those clamps, and we'll clean up these blocks and get all that hot melt cleaned up as well. I find it easier to clean up those blocks by just spraying some denatured alcohol on it. It just allows that hot melt to come up easier. And then I'll just knock them off with a hammer, spray a little bit more denatured alcohol on the residual hot melt, and then using really light pressure and a sharp chisel, I'll just go around the surface of it to clean everything up and then wipe everything back down. Now we need to cut off that interior edge again. By doing this, we'll just do the same process as before with the template, except for now we'll use the countertop as our template. So doing 3 different step cuts on that interior edge, we will clean that up, spraying out any chips in between. So here's my last pass, and you can see that comes right off. So same thing, we'll use a pattern bit now to come down and just trim off those ends and trim off the interior edge. If there's any marks or residual glue, we'll come in and we'll just use a sanding block to clean up anything else. So here we're going to create our first profiled edge, which is the same beaded profile as the beaded edge. So we're going to start about 1 1/8 in from both sides, and we'll just go around and then we'll pull back to stop. So you can see that edge should match the dropped beaded edge. Now we're going to do our second profile, which is going to come in and create this hollow groove in that colored portion. So that bearing will just run along, and then you can just use some sandpaper and clean up that interior edge again. As you can see, that profile is right in the middle and creates this nice little hollow point. So anytime we have those dropped edges there, we need a support for those. So we're going to use a 1-inch MDF. I'll go ahead and cut those to size. But as you can see, any of that glue squeeze out, it's not going to be able to be flush, and it's not going to adequately support those dropped edges. So I'm just going to take it to the edge sander and create a little chamfer along the edge. And that's just going to allow it to sit in tight against those dropped edges. So I'll do the other side too here, get that all set. Once we get that all in place, we'll go ahead and get those glued down using a silicone. We'll use the caulk gun to spread out that silicone along the edge and the face portion of the countertop. And from there, we'll just put our support pieces right in place. And then we're going to clamp those down until that silicone cures. So just using the spring clamps, just put them right in the middle to give it adequate pressure.